Two apartments. Same building, same floor, same square footage, same budget. One looks like a luxury hotel. The other just looks like an apartment. The difference is never money. It is never size. It is psychology, specific visual signals that the human brain reads as expensive, applied deliberately by people who understand how rooms are actually perceived. Once you know these signals, you can use them in any space, starting with yours. These are the psychological principles behind why some small apartments look genuinely expensive, and exactly how to apply them. Before you consciously register a single object in a room, your brain has already formed a judgment about it. Research in environmental psychology shows that first impressions of interior spaces are formed within 90 milliseconds, faster than conscious thought can operate. In those 90 milliseconds, the brain is not reading individual pieces of furniture or evaluating color choices. It is reading the overall visual complexity of the space, asking a single question: does this feel controlled, or does this feel chaotic? Expensive-looking rooms feel controlled. Not sterile, not empty, but controlled, as though every element has been placed with deliberate intention rather than accumulated over time without a plan. Understanding this is the foundation of everything else in this video, because every principle that follows is ultimately about creating that feeling of control. The single most counterintuitive principle in luxury interior design is this: empty space costs more than filled space. Not literally, of course, but perceptually. The brain reads cleared surfaces, open floor areas, and breathing room between objects as signals of abundance. The logic is almost evolutionary. Only someone with enough resources can afford to leave space unused. In a small apartment, this principle is both more challenging and more powerful than in a large one. The instinct when space is limited is to fill every corner, use every surface, and maximize every wall. But this instinct, when followed without restraint, is precisely what makes small apartments look like small apartments rather than like considered design spaces. The edit is the design. Every object you remove from a surface is a decision that makes the remaining objects look more intentional, more valuable, and more expensive. Overhead lighting is the single fastest way to make a room look cheap, and understanding why reveals something important about how the brain reads quality in a space. A single overhead light source flattens every surface it illuminates. It removes shadow, eliminates depth, and makes a room look like a photograph taken with a flash, rather than a place where a considered life is being lived. Expensive-looking rooms use layered lighting, multiple sources at different heights creating pools of warm light rather than uniform brightness. A floor lamp in the corner, a table lamp on the side table, candles on the coffee table, under-cabinet lighting in the kitchen. Each source is warm at 2700 K or lower and positioned to create depth and shadow rather than eliminate them. The total cost of 4 well-placed lamps is often less than the cost of one statement furniture piece, but the visual impact on the perceived quality of a space is considerably greater. Color is one of the most powerful tools available for making a small space look expensive, and one of the most consistently misused. The mistake most people make is not using too much color or too little. It is distributing color without a system, so the eye moves through the room without ever finding a place to rest. The 60-30-10 rule gives the eye exactly that resting place. 60% of the room, walls, large furniture, floors, uses the dominant color. 30%, secondary furniture, textiles, curtains, uses a complementary tone. And 10%, cushions, accessories, art, uses an accent that provides contrast without competing. In a small apartment, this distribution creates visual cohesion that the brain reads as intentional design rather than accumulated decoration. The room feels like it was planned, which the brain interprets, almost automatically, as expensive. The most common furniture mistake in small apartments is choosing pieces that are too small for the space. The logic seems sound: a small room needs small furniture, so everything is scaled down proportionally. But the result consistently looks cheap rather than considered, because small furniture in a small room makes both the furniture and the room look smaller. Counterintuitively, one large statement piece, a generously proportioned sofa, an oversized mirror, a substantial dining table, makes a small room look larger and more expensive than filling the same space with multiple smaller pieces. The large piece anchors the room, gives the eye something to rest on, and signals that the space has been designed around a focal point rather than assembled from whatever fits. The rule is simple: choose fewer pieces, but make each one count. Scale up, not down. Perceived ceiling height has an outsized effect on how expensive a room feels, and in a small apartment with standard or low ceilings, there are specific techniques that consistently create the illusion of greater height without any structural changes. Curtains hung as close to the ceiling as possible rather than at the window frame, even if the window itself is modest. Draw the eye upward and make the wall feel taller. Vertical elements throughout the room, from tall plants to floor-to-ceiling shelving to art hung slightly higher than convention suggests, reinforce the upward movement. And a consistent floor color that runs uninterrupted from wall to wall, without rugs breaking it into smaller sections, creates a sense of horizontal expansiveness that makes the ceiling feel comparatively higher by contrast. The brain judges ceiling height not in absolute terms but in relation to the floor area it perceives. And both of these can be manipulated with decisions that cost nothing beyond the intention to make them. One of the subtlest but most powerful principles in making a space look designed rather than decorated is repetition. The deliberate reuse of a shape, material, or color in multiple places throughout the room. When the brain encounters a repeated element, it interprets the repetition as intentional rather than accidental, which it reads as evidence of a considered design system rather than random accumulation. A round ceramic vase on the coffee table echoed by a round mirror on the wall and round cushions on the sofa. The warm brass of a lamp base echoed in the cabinet hardware and the picture frame. The particular green of one indoor plant echoed in a single cushion accent across the room. None of these repetitions are obvious or heavy-handed, but together they create a visual coherence that makes the room feel like it was designed by someone who knew what they were doing. This costs nothing. It requires only the decision to notice what shapes and colors you are already using, and to use them again deliberately in 2 or 3 other places. There is a final category of decisions that separates rooms that look designed from rooms that look decorated, and they are almost invisible until you know to look for them. The alignment of objects on a shelf, all sharing a consistent baseline rather than sitting at random heights. The way books are arranged with their spines facing outward in a consistent direction. The single stem in a vase rather than a full bouquet that competes with everything around it. The lamp positioned so its shade sits exactly at eye level when seated. These are finishing details, the last 2% of decisions that signal to the brain that someone has thought about this room all the way to the end. They cost nothing. They take minutes. And they are the difference between a room that looks almost expensive and a room that looks genuinely, unmistakably designed. Because the brain does not evaluate spaces by adding up the cost of individual pieces. It evaluates them by reading the level of intention behind every decision, all the way down to the last one. Same apartment, same budget, completely different result because the decisions changed, not the resources. Negative space over accumulation. Layered light over overhead brightness. Scale up, not down. Curtains at the ceiling, not the window. Materials that contrast. Colors that follow a system, details taken all the way to the end. These are not design secrets. They are the way designers think, and now you think that way too.